Welcome to the show, William Metzger. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad, man. The world is a small place.
Yes, it is.
And I say that because you and I went to high school together,
Yes, we did.
and I literally have not seen you since you graduated high school in 2000.
Yep, that's correct.
Now, of course, we have social media, so I've seen you there. I've been able to stay up to date with who you are to an extent and what you're doing. But it's funny how the world kind of brings us together because I've stayed
Mhm.
in NEPA, northeastern Pennsylvania, but you have traveled much farther than that. And we'll get into all that tonight. But thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to
Yeah,
reconnect again.
I know. I was excited. I've been like pumped all day because you are a music attorney
Hmm.
and you are also a record label president at Affiant Records. So typically, as you know, I think a lot of this is interviews with musicians. So I'm excited to talk about a different angle, but still within the music industry. I talk a lot about to musicians about their music and what they're doing. So this will be like a kind of a bigger scope or like
Hmm.
a bigger cast, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not specific to one thing as much as it is just talk about music.
Yep.
So looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
But yeah, so I mean, it's been like I said, it's 23 years since I've seen you last.
Yep.
What ended up happening after high school? You graduated from Lake Lehman High School in Lake Lehman, Pennsylvania, a little small
Go
town, and
Knights.
yeah, go Knights. And I said, like I said, I've moved about 45 minutes to an hour away from there.
Hmm.
Um, but again, you've kind of traveled all over the place. So I wanted to kind of just find out what you've been up to, since then, and we'll talk about what you're up to today.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the thing I did was basically I left for boot camp for the Marine Corps 3 days after high school graduation. So that was technically my last time living in Pennsylvania, if you will, was at
Wow.
18. So yeah. So I went to boot camp in Paris Island, and by the time you got through all your training schools and everything, they sent me out to San Diego for the fleet. If you're in for your 4 years, so I actually played guitar in the Marine Corps band out there, and yeah, I fell in love with California. Like the day I got there, San Diego, the weather's beautiful, the beaches, the palm trees. Much different than Northeast PA. So
Sure. And I
yeah.
probably back then was probably much different than LA is now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was a whole whole different
Yeah.
world. There's a reason I'm not there now.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so I did that and did the Marine Corps thing for a while. And when I got out, I did move up to LA and went to Musicians Institute in Hollywood. That's where I kind of gotten into the love of the business side of music, if you will, and we could go into more of that later. But yeah, so then, I was in California teaching guitar lessons. I did move to Long Island for a year to go to school, then back to San Diego. And then finally, I wanted to finish my degree. And my wife, she's from Dallas, Pennsylvania, actually. She said, we need to finish our degrees. So we moved to here in North Texas to go to UNT. And then I got into law school here. And the rest is kind of history. That's how we got here. So, yeah.
That's a super quick version. So I'm gonna take it back a
Yep.
little bit. I think I remember you like being involved in a band in high school, or maybe you
Hmm.
were just into, guitar. I don't remember you like leaving for uh the Marine Corps that soon.
Yeah, yeah. Now I play saxophone from what is it, seventh grade all the way till 12th grade, and I picked up guitar in like ninth grade. So yeah, it was 3 days after. I just wanted to go and get it over with. So I figured, why not, tear the band-aid off quick.
What was appealing about that?
Uh, Mostly the fact that I auditioned and made it to play guitar. So I mean, I thought that was kind of cool. Unfortunately, the world of events turned into not so much playing guitars, holding a rifle in the years
Oh,
that I served. But
yeah.
it is what it is. I learned a lot. Like I said, it got me to California. So that took my life in completely different directions, I think. So I was really proud of that. Proud of the service. politics aside, it is what it is, what happened. But, it instilled a lot of discipline in me and the ability to go on and, do what I do now, I think.
Yeah, that's so you auditioned for the Marine Corps like band?
Yep, right in the chorus room in the high school. They had a recruiter guy come who I guess he goes around the country and auditions people. And so I sat there in the chorus room, played some stuff for him, and he's like, "Yeah, you're good enough. Let's do it."
Was that something you always like thought, you saw yourself doing, or is that just kind of like, hey, you're in high school, you're interested in music, and that kind of it's an opportunity, and you're like, okay, I could see myself doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted some money for college and the whole GI Bill and everything. So, it was a route that I was going to have to go. And I figured, hey, why not play guitar? If I can get away with it and get paid to
Yeah.
do it. So,
And I asked that question because like, you know, any form of military was just not on my radar. Like,
mhm.
it just wasn't something that um I was interested in, or that, yeah, that's not for me. I've also interviewed Clay Cadwalder. Was he in your grade, or was he 2 years
Man, I haven't heard that name in years. Oh man, I think he was a year or two older than I
you're ahead of
was.
you, maybe? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I just always find it fascinating how like people like get into that or choose that because like it's so respectable, obviously. And it's something that I felt that I could never do. Um, so I was curious as to like how people choose that direction, or maybe it chooses them almost to a degree.
yeah. No, I mean, my sister was in too. She had gone in 2 or 3 years before me, so I was
So you
kind
were
of like, all right,
familiar. Okay.
yeah. And I figured if I go in and branch of service, I can't let my sister show me up. So I have to go in the Marines as well.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, and I mean, I don't even know if like, obviously it wasn't on my radar, but I wonder if people know that like, you could audition for, music in the
Yeah,
Marines and like,
yeah. There was only I think 12 or 13 possible positions for guitarist in the Marines. So I'm not sure. I'm sure things a lot has changed since I've been in, so I'm not sure exactly now. But it's a good option. Military bands for musicians. You wind up like when I was in college, there was a lot of other people who had gone the same path I did. Along with the cruise ship musicians and everything like that. So it's definitely like a viable option if you're looking to play music and have a solid paycheck for it.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. But like you said, it was not so much holding a guitar as it was a rifle. What was that like?
I mean, when I got in, it was all fun and games, I'll say, as far as, everything going on. And then 9/11 happened. And then you could I mean, you could feel the shift in, instead of practicing, we're going to do war exercises and prepare for things. And then when the whole Iraq thing started coming about is when it really intensified. So February 9th of 2003, we were on a plane over to Kuwait and we were there for the whole start of the war and, watched it unfold in front of our eyes. And then luckily, we came back and the unit I was in wound up going back a couple more times, I think, but I had gotten out by that time. So I only had one trip over there, luckily.
Now, obviously, it's always a possibility, right? Going into that,
Every
like,
Marine or rifleman, that's the saying.
but yeah, but like, I mean, when it was happening, like, what were you thinking? What were your thoughts? Like, were you kind of like almost in disbelief to a degree, or were you like, hey, this is what I signed up for? Let's go.
I think being so young, you kind of have a feeling of invincibility, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, so you kind of just go through it, and I think I took it day by day. I mean, obviously nobody wanted to be there, of course, but we knew we had to be. So yeah, every day you just kind of push through, and you meet new people, people that we got deployed with. We were attached to an Air Force Security Forces wing, so that's when I met people from Alabama and places I never even thought, and you kind of make really good friends. Especially when you're in a stressful situation like that. Anytime you kind of get that kind of fraternization going on whenever you're in a stressful situation. Happens with college too. If
Mhm.
you're in stressful classes together, you wind up making friends. So it was not a fun time. I'm not going to say it was the best times of my life, but we made it through, and thankfully we all came home, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it kind of just was what it was. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for your service.
oh, you're welcome.
Was there ever a moment where you were in a situation where you were worried that maybe you wouldn't be coming home?
Yeah. I would say 2 days. Now it's probably the day after the war started. It's always hard because the time zones are off from what America thinks the war started from, actually being their boots on the ground. But yeah, we were all in this huge truck going out to. They would drop us off at our duty posts for the day, and the sirens started going off, and that meant an incoming Scud missile, was coming in. So, and that was the first time. And we had been told and had numerous classes on it that, they were going to use chemical weapons or biological weapons. So we're all falling out of the back of this truck trying to get our NBC suits on and gas masks and everything and run for cover anywhere we could. And so, that was real scary because I just remember kind of after I got all my gear on, sitting looking up in the sky, thinking, well, where is this missile? I'm about to see this come down and everything. Luckily, we had Patriot batteries that, got to shoot them all down before they hit. But, the first time, that second time, it was scary too. Third time, it was scary. But then it kind of kept happening over and over. And you kind of honestly get used to it. Your brain just kind of does what it does to shut it off. And, it's just like, oh, here we go again kind of thing.
Honestly, I can't imagine. I really, it's like for me, people like me, we see that in movies,
Hmm.
and it's hard to believe, and it's unfortunate that like that shit's real and people have gone through it, and not everyone has
Yep.
come home, and
Hmm.
it's terrible.
Yes, it
So
is.
yeah, glad you made it home too. So
Me too. Very thankful and blessed.
yeah, so I mean, I don't want to talk too much about that. I'm not sure how much you want to get into that world. I mean, I know a lot of people unfortunately have a hard time talking about that or bad memories.
Mhm.
So um
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd say, 'cause I often think about, we see a lot of veteran problems today and veteran suicide and everything. And I think the key is like, it's a huge part of your life. It's definitely a life-changing experience. You'll never be the same again. Everybody knows that who's been through it. But, if you serve for 4 years from age 18 to 22 or whatever, don't make that your life. You have so much life left after. There's so much you can do. There's so much opportunity if you go back and look at what you've been through, what you've overcome, what you've accomplished. Don't make those 4 years the bane of your existence. Of like, obviously, if you have problems, yes, get help. There's places out there to help, and you definitely need help. And there's people who have seen a lot of things and done a lot of things that no person should ever have to do. But if you can get out and take what you've learned and take that experience and apply it to something else, going to school, building a business, um, anything, even just having a family. I mean, make sure that, the rest of your life is not just reliving those 4 years over and over and over again.
that's good advice. And that's a good transition into I guess the next part of your life. Did you serve for 4 years and then you got out?
Hmm. Yep.
Um and what did that kind of look like?
For me, it was really crazy. It was I'll be honest, it was a hard transition because I got out on a Friday and on Saturday I moved to Hollywood. So you want to talk about from going like to this strict life of, everything's got to be planned and everything to Halloween every day.
Hmm.
It was quite an adjustment, I have to say. First month, it was pretty rough. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't feeling too hot about life, but thankfully, when I got into the program at Musicians Institute and I met a lot of great friends and it was all about music and I just dove headfirst into it. And, we wound up having so much fun and had great times together. And once again, made lifelong friends there as well.
You said it was kind of you were uneasy. Like what made it that way? Just because of the complete difference of life and or
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but that's the first time you're truly on your own, if you will. I had to get an apartment, I had to pay rent. You don't have to do that in the military. So, you have to figure
yeah,
out, all right, GI Bill payments coming in and, just that kind of stuff. Also, too, school was new to me at the time, too. So, being in a class that's not high school, the first college experience, if you will, you had to get used to that. So, it was a lot of adjustments that had to be made very quickly.
got it. Now, so you're essentially going to school when others are finishing school. Um, right? You're
Correct.
20,
Yep.
22, 23.
Yep. 22. Yep.
Typically, if you go to school like right after college or right college right after high school, you might be wrapping things up. Was it what was that experience like as far as that goes? I mean, was it a really big deal or did it kind of
Honestly, at Musicians Institute, a lot of the people in my program were older than me. They were
Okay.
already in their 30s and stuff. So
Okay.
sometimes I was the youngest one in like our little friend group, if you
Well, there
will.
you go.
So
That's good, right?
yeah, I mean, so it was a nice transition that way. I would say definitely.
Okay. And what was that college like? Well, you mentioned making friends and all the music and stuff. Like, talk about that
It,
experience.
I loved it, honestly. I mean, it was only a 6 month program, but you're just so immersed in everything between learning how to record, learning how to do Photoshop for the program I was in, plus playing guitar. And I mean, famous people would just walk by you in the hall. Paul Gilbert, the great guitar player, he'd just be sitting in a room shredding, and you could just go in and be like, "Hey, Paul, what's up?" And he'd be like, "Hey, let me show you this lick." And it's like, wow, I'm sitting here with Paul Gilbert, my lord. Um, and they would bring in a lot of different speakers. Teachers for the classes used to, be managers for Kiss. So he had some great hands-on experience. And like I said, that's where I started to see two things. And that kind of made a huge transition in my life. Prior to that, I just really wanted to be a rock star as far as a guitar player. But once I got there, I saw what a working musician was, meaning, how to actually make a living doing it, taking either teaching guitar for a living, taking, theater gigs where you're playing in a pit or, little jazz trios where you're playing in restaurants for money. And then the other side of that was the business side, obviously, because that was huge. So learning about recording, learning about publishing rights, learning about record label operations, how to sell yourself, how to promote yourself, that entire side of it, and meeting executives in the music industry was a really incredible experience that really changed, obviously, the course of my life.
So when you saw the business side of things, is that what you saw that and kind of like this is the direction I want to go with it?
Not at first, honestly. I always kept the experience in my back pocket and the knowledge, and was always interested in it. It wasn't until I was actually getting out of my undergrad degree in jazz guitar performance where I thought, you know what, I'm pretty burnt out on music, to be honest with you. UNT, University of North Texas here, excellent music program, world renowned, very competitive. Every day is a jury or some kind of audition you have to do. You're always competing with your classmates. So just after so many years of doing it, I was kind of on the burnout side of it, and I thought, I looked at the business side and I thought, yeah, now's the time. Independent things are kind of popping up now. Things are changing in the world. That's everything's kind of fracturing into different ways, and I can get in doing that. And so I thought, hey, let's go get a business degree. I thought maybe an MBA would be something I could get into where I could work at a record label or do something on the industry side. But my wife at the time was taking a business law class for her accounting degree. And so she came home and she said, I don't think you want to do an MBA. I think you want to be a lawyer. I thought, okay. And so I looked into it, and I started realizing, hey, all these, especially the older people in the industry that run it, the Clive Davises of the industry, they're all lawyers. They started as lawyers. So I thought, hey, you know what? I'm way better at reading than I am at math. And so I said, let's do law school. And I looked into it and started going that direction.
That's such a cool like thing because I mean I remember I don't have an ounce of talent musically. Like I can't play guitar. I could barely play the recorder back in grade school, right? But I never thought about the business side of music, and I wish that I did because as you know, I love music. Like this is my way of kind of being involved in music. I remember when I was like I was at high school or maybe it was like early college. I wanted to be, no, I was probably high school. I was like, I want to be an A&R coordinator.
Hmm.
And I thought that would be super sweet, right? Like find new talent, all that kind of stuff. But I was like, there's no way that I'm moving to like New York City or shit like that. There's
Yeah.
just like, I'm not that type of person. I wasn't, when I was in high school. Like, I don't know what it was about, me and my personality. I just wasn't very shy. I liked being home. I liked this area. I
Hmm.
love my parents. I had a great upbringing. And it was never like leaving was never um really a thought in my mind. And that's like I look back now and it's like, is that good or bad? I don't know. I mean, well, it's pretty good, so I can't complain. But you turn 40 like I am, and it's like, what if? Like, what if I had done that? What would I have made it? Like, what would have happened? Obviously, I probably wouldn't have never met my wife, and
Yeah,
that you
exactly.
think about that shit, and like it's like, yeah, I have two kids, and maybe if I didn't meet my wife, I wouldn't have them. It's just like it's weird to think about. But I never thought about like the business side of music. Um, Especially consider that I felt I probably would have had to have moved.
Hmm.
So it's cool that you saw this opportunity and or saw like a part of music that you could kind of jump into that wasn't
Hmm.
as competitive, I guess you could say, as performing.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely still competitive. There's
Sure, of
there's
course,
not
yes,
too
but
much difference, but I mean the thing is too, and I'll say this. I think our generation where we're at, we kind of got screwed in a way, and I always say that because we came up in this, like when
this
I
limbo,
started in it. Yeah, I mean it was the internet started
yeah,
being big, and like while we were almost graduating high school. We didn't have cell phones until we got out of high school.
yeah,
And I mean, I hate the ages, but that's the truth of the matter, And so, and then suddenly everything just flipped.
yep,
When we were going, it was you got to go to college. It's the only way you're gonna make any money. And now there was no YouTube stars.
right,
You couldn't even do a podcast like this. This
right,
didn't exist. So
yeah,
I mean, it's so weird the timing of things and how we're kind of we have one foot in both camps of like this old school world, and
yeah.
now we're adapting, and thankfully we're young enough to learn this kind of stuff and hop onto it really quick, but we weren't born with cell phones in our hands and on TikTok for sure.
I'm so
So
glad.
I mean it's one of those things where even when I started it was, hey, you better go to New York, Nashville, or LA.
Yeah,
And now with the advent of the internet, I mean, you could be anywhere and do anything pretty much, and
right.
even NEPA and even Southern PA. I mean, when I was graduating high school, I couldn't find anybody who knew how to play a drum set. And then 3 years later, you find out there's August Burns Red, there's Motionless in White, Breaking Bend. It's like suddenly all this talent popped up, and I'm like, well, where was this when I was there? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
I'm so glad you said that because I always like I don't ever want to say like this and it kind of sounds like I'm like complaining or like I'm like pouting about it. But like we were like you said, like this kind of I feel like we're like in this holding pattern where
mhm.
we were kind of like, this internet is new and it's like, is this gonna be like a forever thing? Like, do I go all in? Like, do I like play it safe, like and get a job like that's not centered around the internet? Like it was just like this weird
Yeah,
place. And it's like it could go this way or it could go this way. And obviously we know where things went and internet is a massive part of our lives now. But yeah, I felt like with our generation was just like in this middle, like kind of like in purgatory almost, like
absolutely. Yeah,
weird. I don't know. Yeah, but here we are
here we
talking
are.
over the internet.
Exactly.
But so yeah, so you decided to go the business route. Talk about the steps that you took there.
A lot of studying at first. Obviously, going to law school was, not a fun time in a sense because it's those years are all a blur to me. I probably couldn't tell you most of what happened in the world at the time, and people are like, "Oh, don't you remember that?" I'm like, "No, I was studying the whole time." So, yeah, a lot of time, a lot of dedication to that, and then a lot of extra learning outside because obviously, when you're in law school, you're learning all kinds of law, not just one particular thing. So after that, you have to sit and study the copyright law issues, if how a recording deal works, what a record contract looks like, what a publishing contract does, how all those kind of things. So a lot of study of that, and then a lot of networking. A lot of getting out there, a lot of meeting people. I mean, as with any business, when you start, especially in a service industry where you're looking for clients. So it was just a lot of shaking hands, a lot of meeting people, a lot of studying still, a lot of keeping up to this day on what's going on, checking trade magazines every day, what's going on Billboard. Um, yeah, just basically things like that, and continuing to meet people every day and help grow the businesses.
It sounds overwhelming.
It definitely can be for sure. I mean, there's no doubt there are some 18-hour days involved in it, between running everything and operations and things that just pop up. There's fires that pop up on a daily basis that you have to put out. So yeah, it can be for sure.
Well, there's just so much that I don't think a normal person like me would even think about, whether it's,
Hmm.
music law or, any other kind of law in general. It's just like, thank God there's people like you out there because like there's just so much that I mean, the books that I imagine that you read were, massive, right? And I was like,
Hmm.
nope, not for me. I'm not doing that. Like, forget it. But it seems wild.
Yeah, it is definitely some wild days for sure. But I mean, at the end of the day, I always say you work in music. I mean, it
Yeah.
can't get any better than that.
So you finished law school and you went. Was it? You said you talked. Learned a lot of different law, but I mean,
Hmm.
why? I mean, I guess music law was appealing because of music, right? So talk
Hmm.
about, I never even knew that kind of, well, yeah, I never knew because I just never thought about it. Why would I? I'm not a musician. I don't need to be protected. I don't need to worry about recording deals and, all that kind of contract shit.
But you do
So I
have to
just,
worry about podcasting law. That's a big
and
new
I want to
area
talk
of the
about that.
law.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but just protecting what you create. And,
Hmm.
you always hear bands that, break up and, payouts and royalties and writing credit versus I guess performing. I don't even know the whole
It's my daily
lingo,
life.
but but yeah. So like, you finished, you graduated, right?
Hmm.
And then did you open your own firm or?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. That's what I did. I had a couple of internships. I worked in bankruptcy law, real estate law, and then said, I'm just going to open my own firm. And here we are.
And what's it called?
William J. Metzger Law, PLLC.
All right. Easy enough.
Yep.
I still want to call you Bill though. I
That's
know you
fine.
as Bill.
Yep. Most people back there do.
Bill Metzger.
That's right.
But I mean, talk about music law and being a music attorney. Like, obviously you have clients that you represent.
Hmm.
Now, are you like on a retainer like a normal lawyer would be, I think, or whatever that might be, or talk about how that all works and what value you provide and like why it's important.
Sure. So, as far as fees, I mean, that's situational. You could do an hourly rate depending upon, what the issue is. Contracts sometimes can be on a flat rate or a percentage fee depending upon if there's an advance in the contract or some kind of payment. So that just varies depending upon the situation. Plus there's also fees if you're doing things like forming corporations or LLCs that you have to pay the government of the state. Of course, you can never get around that kind of thing. So, yeah. But as
People
far as,
try.
yeah, exactly.
They go to
Uh,
jail.
yep. So, yeah, I mean, what a music attorney does is it basically helps an artist or an executive, a label. I have clients that are also record labels as well. You help them mostly in the end protect their intellectual property. So either that's copyrights of songs, whether that be a master recording or the performance side of it, which is considered publishing. You're always on the lookout for, I help a lot of artists when they don't get paid royalties or they haven't heard from whoever's supposed to be paying royalties for them. I do a lot of business formation to protect an artist's assets in that way. That way, if the situation occurs where they might get sued or something like that, and all is well, and they have their corporation or LLC set up correctly, the person who's suing them won't be able to take their house from them. Only what's in their corporation, as far as how much money and assets are within that. Um, and yeah, just basically anything that happens on the transactional side of law. So any kind of contracts, performance agreements with theme parks I've had where a theme park wants a band to play, and so there's a contract for that. Um, like I said, publishing deals. I do speaking as well. I've spoken at ECMC before. I just spoke at Launch Music Conference in Lancaster this year. So it's a lot of kind of education, if you will, as well, so that people can help understand, what music is. Because a lot of musicians, I had no clue about this until I got into the Musicians Institute. Like I said, to me, it was all just playing and fun, and I wanted to be the best guitar player there was. But I didn't understand this whole other side of the world, and a lot of musicians don't. And sometimes, I think every musician should have a good understanding of it, but in the end, that's not really their job either. They're supposed
Right.
to create the music, and then they have a team surrounding them, and hopefully they have a good team surrounding them that handles this for them. with, their manager to kind of do day-to-day tasks with them, a lawyer, an entertainment lawyer specifically, to look over all the contracts and any kind of issues with that, their publicists to get their names out there and into magazines. So yeah, I mean that's kind of it. And the one thing I will say is that if a musician's looking for a lawyer, don't hire a slip and fall attorney or an accident attorney, because like I said, we all study law in general, but then we kind of specialize, if you will, into what areas we want to practice. So I would never take a slip and fall case because that's not my area of law. Don't have them because they don't understand what the contracts look like in music or how they actually operate in the real world. So yeah, if you need an attorney, get an entertainment attorney or music attorney, one who's well versed in the industry.
Do you think bands like in the 80s and stuff like that, do you think they got taken advantage of to a degree because A, they didn't have representation, or do you just think that they didn't know enough about it, so they had people kind of like guiding them in the right direction, but it was the wrong direction? Is that accurate, or am I just kind of making that up based on
So
the
I
timing?
would say, like, if you go back that far to the 80s, there was, a lot of gatekeepers that don't exist today. So, if you wanted to be a star in the 80s, you basically had to get the attention of a major label, A&R, because that's really all that kind of existed in a sense. And, they would put out your CD in the store, make a million CDs, put them in stores like Gallery of Sound, and they'd sell and you'd be a star and you'd go on tour and life is good. Um, yeah, at that time, when you're at that level, you obviously need to have an attorney, and I think a lot of them did. There's legends out there, Don Passman. There's a couple of others too, who were around in the 80s at that time to help artists with that. And I think most of them, when you're signing to that big of a deal, they should have been smart enough to have an attorney look at it to make sure that the deal was good and they weren't getting taken advantage of. Whether they did or not, and that all comes out later on Behind the Music on VH1, I guess, in the 90s.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe like they had management that said, yeah, it's taken care of, don't worry about it. And all the while they're like skimming off the top, or the money is disappearing, and that's you see some of the musicians that were huge or that are now,
Mhm.
playing rooms that are, you know, smaller, just trying to make some extra
Oh
money,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I was just
Musicians are much smarter today, obviously, with
yeah.
the education that's out there on YouTube and everything like that. So I think more musicians kind of understand, and of course, we have the history of them seeing what had happened in the past. So, in the 80s, obviously, if someone comes to you with a record deal, and back then they were for millions, honestly, because CDs sold a lot more than streaming royalties do and streaming rates. Uh, you know, you jump at the chance basically. And
Mhm.
today, with the way things are, I think musicians are a little more hesitant, and they say, "Okay, that's cool. I appreciate it. I'd like to do this. Let's just take a step real quick and make sure everything's good. All the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted before we do this." So, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of musicians this day and age are very it's so much more of a business, which kind of sucks to a degree, right? Like,
Hmm.
you think about rock stars back in the day, like, like you said before, like they were just, they were there to play. They performed, they wrote music, and I think we got a lot of great music in the 70s and things like that because of drugs.
Yep.
And now it's
Yep.
like, that typical like rock star, like party guy or girl or whatever, like that's very non-existent. And that's for probably a few reasons. You can get arrested for doing drugs. You want to take things seriously. The list is a mile long, right? There's cell phones with cameras on them. Like you can't like
That's the big thing. Yeah, you're gonna get busted today.
yeah,
It was cool in the 70s to throw a TV out of a hotel window, but you do
yeah.
that today and everybody had it on film and it's
Which
gonna be
sucks.
viral on Facebook. And nobody wants to work with jerks today, because we've seen the history. Like I said, we're 40, 50 years later from that. So, you have to definitely behave more today in this society than you could get away with back then.
But the music's not as good. I want more drugs.
You want more drugs and
Yeah, not
music?
for me. Yeah, for in the music. Yeah, I want people to unlock that part of their brain that otherwise wouldn't have been because they're on drugs. Think
I mean,
about it.
there's still great music out there. The problem is
Sure.
that it's harder to find. You know, what I think in 2019, the statistic was there were 60,000 songs uploaded to Spotify a day.
A day.
Uh, yeah. And then I
Wow.
recently had a meeting with my distribution partner, and it's now 120,000 songs a day.
A
So
day.
everybody's fighting to get through that. And I'll tell you, honestly, not everybody, you know, deserves to be on those, you know, uploading those songs. I mean, their music is just horrible, and there's no barrier to entry anymore, so anyone
Right.
can do it. So that's what makes it hard to find the good music, and you know, hopefully, with things like good record labels and good representation, it helps that kind of music to stand out and rise above, you know, all the stuff that's out there, and hopefully more people get to hear it and that takes off as opposed to just being lost in the clutter of 120,000 songs a day.
That's an insane number.
Hmm.
I'm glad you brought that up because I say it a lot. Like that's why one thing I like about radio to a degree, as much as it has fallen off, so to speak, over the years, what I like about radio, especially like maybe like a local radio station, and what I was doing at one point with the local music scene, people have to hear it, right? I mean, obviously, like there's songs that they have to play. You know,
Hmm.
there's the Taylor Swifts and all that kind of shit they have to play. But like I feel like it's still stuff that has made it through some kind of system where it's good. It's it's it has all the right, timing and the beats and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So at least when you're listening to radio, it's like, okay, well, this is appealing to the masses, so it's probably good. But like you're telling me that
Yes.
there's 120,000 songs uploaded daily, and how much of that's garbage? 99% probably.
Pretty much. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
I
Yeah.
always make a joke about this. Like, I mean, like any idiot like me can start a podcast. And at one point, there was I forget how many million, there's millions of podcasts were, uh, on Spotify, uploaded to Spotify. Now, there's also a number
Hmm.
that a small number that has made it past 10 episodes.
Hmm.
I'm happy to say that I've made it past 10.
Awesome.
This will be 153,
Awesome.
but it doesn't make my podcast good. But it's like it's and it's like anything else like the internet offers. There's no, like, everyone has a voice, everyone has an opinion that can be shared, which I mean I guess is good, but I always feel like the idiots speak the loudest sometimes.
This is true.
So it's like, I don't know, it's like the Wild West, this internet. And you know I don't know how, I don't know how much it's different now with the streaming services compared to, prior to. And I don't know how much you were involved with, both sides of that. But I mean, what do you see? Is there one that's better than the other, or there's just different obstacles?
As far as streaming services and their
Yeah, as
payouts,
far
or
as
what do you?
all that stuff, like, prior to streaming, there was, record labels and, people standing outside record labels trying to get their music heard and all that kind of shit.
Hmm.
Now it's, the Wild West, and, TikTok has made people famous. And I want to talk to you about um Oliver Anthony and his wild
Yeah.
success.
Yep.
It just it seems, maybe it's a little similar, but maybe it's just wildly different. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, with all that, I mean, as far as streaming services, you know, Apple pays higher than Spotify. Tidal, I believe, pays the most, but you know, the fewest people honestly are on Tidal.
Right.
Unfortunately, all of them are still fractions of a penny. YouTube is one of the worst payouts that you can have. You know, for all the music videos and for the cost of a music video production and the time you have to put into that and everything. You know, the streaming revenue for it is actually horrible.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, that's the world that we're in. Everything has content has fractured into so many different divisions. You know, like we saw, if you talk about the 80s or the 90s, I mean, all you had to do was if you got in and accepted by a record label and signed to a record label, they would take some press photos of you. They would, you know, send you into a studio, make your album. They would, you know, make 1 million, 2 million copies of that album, get it out to stores. The stores were, you know, the only place you could get music. So
Mhm.
whatever they had in that store is what you were, you know, subjected to and going to buy. So that's how you can easily make a star because you just shrink the pool down to what you have to choose from. And of course, they'd hit radio, and radio plays, the same 10 songs over and over again. And it was much easier. And then so you take some press photos and you go out on tour, and boom, you're a star. Today, I mean, a musician has to work harder than ever, in my opinion, because you have to be on every social media account. You have to be being funny on TikTok. You have to be, posting on Facebook with links to your music. You have to be, uh, hopefully getting some ad time on Spotify and getting your Instagram going. And now, then one day we're sitting around and suddenly Threads pops up. And so now people are jumping over to Threads and you're trying to keep up with that. I mean, you just have to be everywhere at once. And that's what really makes it hard for a musician. So, best advice is what it takes is work ethic now. Obviously talent has to be there.
Yeah.
That songs will always be, at least for me, where everything starts from. If you have a crap song, I don't care what else you do. You could be as popular as you want to be, but everybody knows the song's crap. So you'll get famous for being talked about in a way you probably don't want to be.
Right.
But if you have that talent and you have those songs, it's the work ethic of everything else that you have to do to stay competitive in this world where you're competing with 120,000 other people per day.
And all those things typically a band member is doing a lot of now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Back in the day, the musician wrote the songs and performed the songs. Now the musicians are the ones who are editing videos and doing
Yep.
Photoshop for flyers and all that stuff. Like it's doing the social media. I can't imagine, like it's just a lot of work.
It's a ton of work. I mean, it's a full-time job in itself for sure. And no matter what you do, you can't replace the band member. No, I mean, I could be a great photographer, but unless the band's in front of me to take a picture, it's not gonna work. So the band has to do the work itself. You can't make content that isn't the band, if you will.
Yeah. I don't know. I always say it's got to be, and you said before, I think it's so hard to kind of stand out. Um,
Mhm.
and do you have any recommendations for bands who, um, maybe they've been at it for 3 years, maybe they've been, just starting? Like, do you have any advice where people can like stand out or be heard?
Yeah, the best thing to do is take yourself very seriously. Like I said, make it have a business mindset when you go into this. You can't, unfortunately, just be a musician today. You can't make your songs and record them and be like, okay, cool, we're good. Nobody's going to hear you, nobody's going to listen to you. So you have to be out there. You have to be out there meeting people. You have to be out there on your social medias. You just have to keep pushing. You have to gain fans, gain organic fans. As people come to your shows, be nice to people. That's a big thing. You can't act like a jerk these days. So don't treat fans thinking you're some kind of great rock star and everything like that. Really appreciate everyone who comes and supports you or buys your merch or streams your song or says a nice comment on one of the social medias. That's the best way to do it because if you can gain an organic fan base, that you can go anywhere with that is basically the idea. So yeah, I mean that's what I would say is just it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of keeping up with everything. If something new pops up, you'd be on it. Keep up with it and just keep going and keep trying and keep pushing. Make sure you have good representation, whether that be, like I said, good management, good attorney, obviously, good publicists. And, that can also help you get ahead as well because if your stuff is good and it comes across my desk, I have contacts that maybe I could hook you up with as well. In the industry, whether depending upon what you need, do you need a publicist? Do you need a manager? Are you looking for a record label, etc.? So, um, just try your best to get noticed and be a good person. That's probably the best thing because people want to work with people they like.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to work with a jerk. I
Right.
see it every day on social media. We're always trying to, this promoter did this and he screwed all these people over and everything like that. And it's just always a big fight back and forth. So, just be a good business person, handle your business well, take care of things, pay the people you're supposed to pay, thank the people that should be thanked. And I think that's a great way to start standing out among everyone else.
Okay. And let's say I'm a band. Like when is it a good time to contact someone like you? Like when is that necessary? Like day
So
one? Like when does that happen?
I wouldn't say day one. I would say when you guys decide to become serious. So meaning that, you have four or five people in your band, and you've been playing for a while, and you know that these are the four or five people you want to do things with. You're not going to trade out members every 2 weeks, or, we really don't like the bass player, so we're looking for another one. Once you kind of get that core group of people together that you really want to go forward with, then you kind of have to decide, what do you want to do with your career? Do you want to just kind of, be local and play local spots? Do you want to be a national touring and recording act? Do you want to be an international star? Get your goals together in that kind of sense and make sure everyone in the band is in agreement. Sometimes you can't do that. People have family obligations, especially as you get older, where, somebody who's in Northeast Pennsylvania can't go touring the West Coast during March, so
Right.
you have to just kind of figure out where you are first. That's a good thing. Set your goals, have a lot of clarity on what your goals are, all the Tony Robbins stuff that you would hear about that. Um, and then, once you have that down, you can contact me, and a good thing to do would be create, a corporation or an LLC to protect your assets as well. We could do a band agreement so that everybody's on the same page and understands what their responsibilities are going to be within the band, how you're going to split profits and losses, certain situations that happen, unfortunately, if somebody has to go to rehab or something, which unfortunately does happen, but this way you're kind of better prepared going in, and everyone knows their individual responsibilities to the band. And then from there, it's just about, building. And I work with a lot of bands on where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Kind of on the consultation side, if you will. I have what's called strategy sessions with bands, and they can talk about, here's what we want to do. Okay, then here's the best way I think we should proceed. And here's who I'm going to contact to help you guys out. But yeah, once a band is serious about, who they want to be, they have a brand together, they know that, they're I don't know, a hard rock band, and they're not gonna think that they're hard rock, but then they think that they might be pop punk, and then they're gonna do some rap songs. They have a good brand going, they look the part, and they know what they want to do next. I think that's the point when you should start contacting other people to start joining your team.
That's cool. That's a lot of good information there. Um, as far as you as a music attorney, do you seek out musicians, or is it a lot of organic people that come to you? How does that work?
If it is word of mouth these
Word of
days,
mouth.
which is really good. I get clients who recommend me to other clients, which is awesome. I think that's one of the greatest ways that it can happen. And like I said, it's just a lot of going out and meeting people when they don't need me, or just like, okay, that's cool. Yeah, you're a music attorney. That's great. And then 2, 3 years later, they call me, hey, now I got this opportunity. Now I need help. So, a lot of it's just, garnering network relationships and
Yeah.
seeing how they grow as time goes on.
I imagine it's not a very hard sell.
Uh, so depending upon the time, I mean, if someone comes to you and there's a pressing issue, like, hey, I have this contract, obviously, yeah, it's pretty easy. But like I said in the beginning, where you're talking to someone and they don't really have anything going on, what you have to do is you have to get them to remember you, so
Right.
that when they do have something, oh yeah, who's that guy I met at that show, blah blah blah, let me
Yeah.
give him a call. And that's how it happens.
And they could have met five along the way in between that
Mhm.
that time. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Top of mind, as the marketing department would teach you.
Do you do any kind of like social media marketing, or are you just kind of you just
I have all my pages. I'm at William J. Metzger, mostly on Facebook and Instagram. And then I do have a law page on Facebook, William J. Metzger Law, PLLC. So yeah, and yeah, I post some things about there every once in a while, kind of about what's going on in the industry, just good topics, copyright cases, things like that.
I feel like today too, things move so quickly. Um,
Hmm.
are you constantly having to, you know, read articles and just keep yourself very educated on the ever-changing landscape? Because, you mentioned earlier, there's all the social media and then Threads pops up, and like
Hmm.
there's all these things. Like the world moves so fast. How do you really kind of keep it all together.
Well, as lawyers, every lawyer, no matter what law you practice, has to do continuing legal education credits every year. So we do have to always go to classes to learn. So I'm always attending um, the Texas Entertainment Institute. They have a 2-day seminar every year down in Austin that I go to, and they do a great job of discussing recent case topics and what happened this year in music. So that's always good. Um, but other than that, a lot of it's keeping up with what I do see on social media, things that are happening, Billboard magazine, Music Business Worldwide, websites like that. Basically the trade magazines of the day today. Always seeing what's happening and what's going on, and then if new cases come out, you can go and usually they have a script article attached to it with the actual case, so you can read it and learn from that. And so there's a lot of that that happens on a daily basis. You have to set aside time every day to go over that basically. And that's one of the first things I do in the morning is look at that and see where the day goes from there.
Yeah. Now, did you ever foresee all of this kind of happening, with the streaming services, Spotify, Apple, the 4 or 5 others? I mean, when we were in high school, we had Napster and LimeWire, right?
Hmm.
That eventually got shut down. Did you like foresee this happening, like, or was it like kind of like, well, shit, this is wild, and this is like a new area that I can kind of, help guide people through.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the whole streaming thing and the fracturing of content, if you will, happened while I was in law school.
Okay.
So it was something that, it was emerging at the time to pay attention to. And then I started thinking, hey, there's a lot of opportunity now, as I've always wanted to either, like I said, work at a record label or own a record label. So in law school, that's really where that kind of came about. And I thought, wow, well, look, now there's opportunity to do that, without having to have $2 million to make a bunch of CDs for someone and everything like that. There's ways that you can, get music out there without having the big three record labels stand in your way. So, I didn't foresee it because I didn't think about it, early on. But as it started emerging, thankfully, I was there right at the beginning to kind of learn how everything was going to work and start foreseeing, how things will start fracturing and be everywhere all the time, and Facebook and Instagram and everything like that on social media. So, yeah, I was very lucky to kind of catch that at a good time, I think, as well.
Are you for or against the streaming services outside, like, forget the how much money they pay? Like, are you,
Hmm.
I mean, I always say I bought CDs forever. Like, I held out
Hmm.
so long. I was constantly in gallery sound. I think I called it quits on buying CDs. I want to say maybe 2018. I was literally spending probably $200 a month just on
Hmm.
CDs. I would walk into
Yep.
the record store at Joe Nardone's Gallery of Sound. Sometimes with a purpose. I want to get this, and sometimes I would just walk in because it was like therapeutic to a degree. I liked, flipping through the CDs and maybe picking up a used CD because it was cheaper, and it was just
Hmm.
based on the artwork, the cover of the art, and just kind of being surprised with whatever the pick was. Um, but I fought it for so long, but I would go home, I would, yeah, take it home, I would put it on my computer, and I would transfer it to my iPod because I would have
Hmm.
it, at
Yep.
least on that. But then, like, I had a kid in 2017, spending $200 a month, not financially responsible, and you know, then I could get Spotify for $10 a month, and I have every song that I can ever imagine, songs I'll never ever get to in my entire life
Yep.
at my fingertips. So what do you think about that? I mean, there's got to be pros and cons, right? But like, as someone who knows both, CDs versus streaming, like, what do you think?
It's interesting. Like I said before, our generation, we have a foot in both camps. Growing up, I mean, I could still remember the day that I went to Gallery of Sound when it was in the back mountain still,
Mhm.
and picked up the new Dream Theater album when albums came out on Tuesdays, not Fridays,
Right?
back in the day. And just maybe because I was in high school and I was young and everything, but just the excitement of that.
Yeah.
I love that, and taking the CD home and listening to an album all the way through, especially like a progressive metal album like Dream Theater. Um, So from a personal standpoint and from a musician, I love CDs. I went with CDs as long as I could until I got a car that didn't have a CD player. And then
That
that's kind
that that
of
too.
that's kind of where it had to end for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean the CD is great because I learned so much just sitting there. I was the nerdy guy who'd sit and read all the liner notes and be like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, that they thanked this guy and
Yeah.
this guy was she was the attorney on this and this is the record label and this is the president of that record label and what is this little when I was younger, what's the little copyright symbol mean next to this and so I learned a lot from that. I still have gosh, thousands of CDs that I
Yep.
still keep around just because. But then at the same time, the convenience of the streaming is incredible. The fact that I could go into my car and put on whatever song I want when I'm, driving around is just awesome. Or especially from the business side, if I need to reference something really quick, instead of having to dig through a ton of CDs, I could just be like, hey,
Right.
let me pull it up real quick and hear it. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely pros and cons to both. CDs obviously made a lot more money for everyone, artist, label, everybody included. Um, so now with the streaming, it's much harder to make the same amounts of money, and that's why we've seen advances go from millions to thousands, hundreds, depending upon the band. You know, so I love the CD personally, just because I grew up with that, but the streaming is a good thing, I think, for the world we live in today. I do
Sure.
wish the payouts were higher. There are companies that are working to kind of get that happening. So I'm really happy about that. And being able to join them as a record label owner is a really cool thing because they actually go and fight for more streaming payouts for you. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I love the CD. But now what's great is that we can go and buy the vinyls of things. That's a huge
Is it
thing I
great
started
though?
getting into.
Come on.
The thing I'll say about it is that a lot of the music was not meant for vinyl. These new heavy metal metalcore albums just weren't meant to be played on vinyl, if you ask me.
Mhm.
They master them sometimes for vinyl if they're cool and it sounds really good, but you know, I go back and collect the classics. If I can find an original Simon and Garfunkel on vinyl,
Sure.
I'm all about it now. So, I mean, it is what it is. And the nice thing about either CDs or vinyls is at least at a show you can get them signed. You can't sign an MP3.
That's true. That's true. But it's like how many bands now? I mean, because vinyl is very expensive, right?
Mhm. And
Um,
very backed up.
very
three
backed up.
years, to
Yeah.
get your album pressed now.
And by that time, they'll be gone again.
Mhm.
CDs will
Yep,
come back, but then.
exactly. Yeah, we're seeing it. Cassettes are starting to make their way back now with some
That makes
merch.
no sense. That
You
that
know,
that makes no sense. But
I mean, but
yeah.
the true limitation is, and if you actually look way back to the history of things, the people who made the music back in like 1910 and all that were the companies who made the players, the Victrola for them. So what we're limited to is what we have as far as playing. Like I said, once CD players are gone from cars, that forces you into streaming.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're going to bring cassettes back, somebody's going to have to bring cassette players back too.
Right. And that doesn't sound smart. But maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe these
It's
future.
nostalgia.
I know, which is sweet. I love it, man. Like I really do. There's nothing better than because, like you said, like I loved opening CDs and pulling out the insert and reading the lyrics and
Yep.
just it was just and listening to it from front to back. And I say that all the time in this show. It's like they were recorded to be listened to from 1 through 10.
Yes.
And now everything's singles, but like
It's a singles world.
but it's so cool too because like back in the day, you had to, I mean, we waited 13 years for a new Tool album,
Hmm.
which I think if my Facebook memories serve me correctly, not this, um, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, um, Tool released their first album in 13 years. So like, you waited
Hmm.
13 years to hear a new album from your favorite band. Typically, it was 2 years, right? Which
Hmm.
is insane if you really think about how insane that
Yep.
is. 2 years to hear from you. Yeah. So in 2019, August 30th, 2019, I posted on social media. I waited 13 years for this. It was the new Tool album. So that was 4 years ago. Jesus Christ.
But see, there's something to be said in that for a band that can create fans that will wait 13 years for that. Because I think
Sure.
today, if you try to, you're long forgotten. Everybody's on to something new,
Yeah.
So that's a testament in itself to, a band that could create true fans.
Right. But I always thought like 2 years was like, no, looking back on it, 2 years is forever, right? Because now we get a new single every 6, 8 weeks, which is sweet
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm getting more from my favorite musicians, right? Which is cool. But like I can tell you almost like to the year, sometimes to the month, sometimes to the week. And there's certain CDs, if I bought them, I can get almost as close as the day of the year that came out because
Oh yeah.
that experience, going to Gallery of Sound on Tuesday
Like I
and not,
said, yeah, that Dream Theater album came out October 26, 1999. I
there you go.
left the high school parking lot, went right down and bought it. And I remember going down to pick up gas in Trucksville and driving home and
Yeah.
listening to it all night.
And you won't get that again, you
Nope.
know?
Mm-mm. Nope. Now Friday morning, all my pre-saves just automatically load when they release, and that's it. You don't even have to
Yeah.
leave the house or anything.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It goes to all kinds of streaming movies. Like, I mean, I say
Yeah.
this a million times too. It's like I miss going to the video store
Hmm.
and renting a movie from the video store with your girlfriend and get a pizza and take it home and get 5 minutes into it and the movie sucks, but you watch it because that's all you have. Now
Yep.
I spend an hour trying to find something for us to
And
watch.
that, yeah, I'm more frustrated after the hour of trying to find something I
Yeah.
could have been through an entire movie.
And then you finally find it. 5 minutes in, it sucks. It's like, oh, this is
Yep,
terrible. Let's find something new.
exactly.
You're
But you
trying to
see,
find
and
something
you
new.
do that because you have choices. If it
Right.
was a movie that you just paid $5 or whatever to rent, you'd sit and watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, funny enough, we had a place here called Family Video that was actually open until 2019. It was basically like a knockoff Blockbuster. And it was
Nice.
so awesome to go in there and just rent movies just because.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well, outside of music law, you also started your own record label.
correct.
Why? When? How? Um, yeah, I mean that's another area of your business and in your life. How did that all happen?
Well, during law school, like I said, I saw things starting to fracture, and I saw the rise of kind of independent labels and their ability to do things and help musicians. So, to me, it's another area I can help musicians in, which is what I love to do. Help get their music heard, help them to rise above all those songs that are uploaded every day. So yeah, I started the label in 2021. I'm very, very blessed to know people who I was able to get great distribution through, and then work to get my own deals with our distributor, Fuga, which is out of Amsterdam right now. And yeah, so I started it. It's called Affiant Records, and Affiant is actually a legal term, which means one who swears to the truth of the statement that they make in an affidavit. So my tagline to the label is "The Truth in Music."
Hmm.
And my goal with it is to bring the best rock music around that I can to the world. Um, so things I do that things I've seen happen as on the lawyer side with record labels, I kind of tend to remedy with my own label. So a lot of that is communication with my artists. Um, yeah, I'm not speaking bad about any record labels, but I've had clients call and tell me, well, I haven't heard from my label in a year or two. I'm like, well, that's horrible. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
have a good relationship doing that. So, yeah, I'm either on the phone or on chats with my bands on a daily basis. I mean, it's either calling the UK. I was on the phone with the UK yesterday. I'll be on the phone with Canada tomorrow. I take the musician side very, very serious to it. I will actually do live practices with bands, just to see what their live shows like before we send them out and help them in any way I can from all the musical knowledge and experience that I have. And yeah, I mean that's it's a great way to take music that I find that I truly believe in, and I help get out to the world in a way that a lot of musicians don't have that support to them. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and we're growing every day and adding bands, and it's fun. It's very stressful at times. Like I said, it adds a lot of hours to the day trying to keep up with everything. But It's great. I've met a lot of great people doing it, and I have meetings every day with different people in the industry. It's grown. It helps grow my law practice, I think, as well. And it's helped me honestly as a lawyer because now I understand the operation side of a label from actually being in it, as opposed to just looking at a contract and seeing the words on the paper.
Right.
It helps me, I mean, lawyers who kind of don't understand that may be at a little bit of a disadvantage because all they see is the word on in the contract or the phrase or the clause. And you think, oh, that's terrible, blah blah blah. But if you look at it now from the label side, and I go, oh yeah, they're doing that because they're trying to protect themselves from when the band just goes completely ghost on them, and then they can't put out an album and everything. So it really helps you understand seeing both sides of it. It helps me as far as an attorney. And like I said, I get to put out great music and work with great bands and help grow them and help the world.
Now, do you ever jump in and play some guitar for these bands?
I don't on the recordings, but I will kind of help shape some solos if they need some
Yeah,
help with some things or make some suggestions. And I'll
that's
jump in,
cool.
I'll grab the guitar and say, "Yeah, try this," and do
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
But like this fucking suit, get out of here.
that's yeah. See, I walk a fine line between the two, and that's what's kind of hard sometimes because it's like I don't want them to have to see me as a suit, but at the same time, I know that in a sense, I am, and to certain people, I do need to be a suit because that's how the business
Sure.
side of things gets done.
Yeah,
You get taken a little more serious when you're a suit sometimes than not.
that's true. That's very true. Do you wear a tie too?
No.
I had a boss once, and his like in his mindset. This was pre-pandemic, but this is like probably like 2019 maybe. He felt that if you weren't wearing a tie, now keep in mind I was working at a classic rock station and an alternative radio station and a sports radio station, wearing a suit and tie every day. And his mindset was, I'm not even talking shit on him. If I burned him pretty good one day. So his mindset was, if you're not wearing a tie, you're not doing work.
Wow.
And I remember we were in New York City. I'll never forget this day. We were in New York City. We were visiting with some of our national account reps, all of which were in like khakis, polos, super relaxed. These are people working with McDonald's, Coca-Cola, like these big, huge national
Hmm.
brands. So we walk up and it's like summertime, sweating, suit, full suit, tie, everything. We get done meeting with them when we're walking the streets of New York City. We pop into a little restaurant for lunch, and we got a window seat. And he says to me, he says, "No one's wearing a tie anymore." And I look up at him, like I'm like, I can't believe he's saying this. I look up at him like, I guess I'm not getting work done, Terry.
Yep.
And he looked at me like, "You son of a bitch."
Exactly.
It's so good.
Man, yeah. I
So good.
mean, people still tend to dress up more on the East Coast, I think, especially than here. And the problem with
Yeah.
here is it's been 103 degrees every day since June. So, it's too hot for that here.
Yeah. I just thought that was funny. As far as your label goes, I mean, how many bands do you represent?
Let's see. How many do we got? One, two, three, four, five, six, about seven. So our latest signing is a band called Ash's Rain out of Central Virginia. They're actually going to be playing the V Spot during ECMC on Saturday
No
night. So
shit.
yeah, so they're going to get their feet wet in NEPA, which is good. We had our other band, Audience of Rain. They actually played last year at ECMC, so they had a
Okay.
great time playing the V Spot there and got a lot of fans out of the area, which I'm definitely glad to see. We have Honey Talks, and they're a pop punk band out of the UK. They have a release coming up on the 29th of September called There's Hope and Hopeless. So that's going to be a killer album. We also have a pop punk band called Save Our Ships, and they're out of Wales as well. They just released a deluxe version of their last album. We have Envied by Angels out of California. We have Nearly Spent out of Florida, and we have a band called Waterfront, which is a kind of a hard rock Nickelback Seether sound, if you will, out of Canada. So yeah, so we got a lot of bands all over the place and doing well.
How do you attract new bands? Are you seeking them out? Are they finding you?
It's both. A lot of times it's either, someone either sends in a demo to info@affiantrecords.com. Um, and I like it, or a lot of times it's people I know. Sometimes it's the band manager who I know who says, "Hey, check out this band I'm managing." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're great. Let's have a talk." And then we start kind of doing the process from there. So, it's just a variety of ways. Sometimes when the Spotify algorithm works right, I'll have something pop up in my phone and I'll be like, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Let's kind of see what this band is up to." And, a good relationship blossoms from there.
So if I had some artists that I was like, hey, you know what, this is good stuff, I could send them your way. Just at least like,
Mhm.
hey, just I would never be like, I would never tell them like, hey, I'm gonna hook you up with a label. I would just say, hey, like William, Bill,
Yeah.
check this out.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a
Feel free.
genre that you kind of stick to, or does it not matter?
So the label it's a rock label in general. So
Okay.
hard rock, metal, metalcore, and pop punk is basically, where we're at. Active rock, that's kind of what we're going for.
Love that pop punk.
Yep,
Really do. What was that
exactly.
one band? Honey Socks?
Honey talks.
Honey Talks. Honey
Yep.
Talks. Check that out. I'm always, as you know, I'm always interested in listening to new bands.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as a modern day label goes, obviously things are different. You mentioned advancements before. Um, let's say you want to bring a new band on.
Mhm.
What does that kind of look like um for that band? I mean, I'm sure there's different levels, but let's just say it's a initial, you know, first floor uh kind of start.
Sure. So, if I find something I like, obviously I listen to the music. Like I said, it's got to be all about the songs. Um, then, have to check out the socials just to see that they're active and they're working. Um, and they're posting and doing what they're supposed to do. Because if they don't do that in this world, like I said, you can't get ahead. So yeah, I need bands to be doing that. Then we reach out and we have our first conversation, and a lot of that is just kind of finding out about them, finding out if we like each other, are we a good fit for each other. You don't want to you don't want to be working with somebody that hates you all the time, and that's never a good working relationship, no matter what industry you're in.
Right.
Um, and then a lot of it is asking them what their mission is, basically. Do they have, because for me on my label, music has to have a purpose. It can't just be noise because I want to be famous. If someone comes to me and says, I don't care, I just want to be famous, my best advice is try to be a pop star and get signed to a major label, because you're going to have a hard road to pay, to hoe if that's all you want to do. So to me, it's what is your music about? What is your mission? What is your purpose? We want to affect people in a positive way in this world with music. We want to make people feel better by listening to the music. And whether that's, like I said, we've all heard the cases of, your music saved my life. I was going to commit suicide, but then your song came on. So it's either, all the way from that kind of serious level to I had a bad day, skateboarding. It was a bad skate session. I went home and listened to pop punk and felt better, So anything that can affect the world in a positive way is what I'm definitely looking for. So we have discussions about that. Then if we're a good fit going forward from there, we do the contractual paperwork, and once that's signed, then that's when the work begins. That's when the onboarding process happens, and we have to get all the songs uploaded into our distributor, website things, all that kind of stuff, just bringing people on so we can get pre-save links and setting them up with this account and that account and introducing them to this person and that person. And then, taking a look at where we're at and deciding when do we want to release this, what's our marketing plan for releasing this, and it's just a ton of stuff like that. So yeah, once a band signs on, it's like an everyday thing, basically.
Now you don't have to give any numbers, but like I feel like people might think, oh my God, like this is gonna be is gonna cost me a lot of money to have representation. Is that true? Is that like I mean,
As
or
far
do
as
you
the
yeah, I mean like if I'm a band, I want to be on your label and you think I'm the right fit, like does it cost me a bunch of money? Is it something like it's a shared partnership? How does that I mean obviously you're not gonna do work for free, right? Like you wanna be able
right,
to
no, I don't charge to be on my label.
okay.
Yeah, we do the work and then we take the cut
Take a
of the
cut.
royalties. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So their success is your success.
Exactly. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
that's why it's a great, it's a partnership of working together for everyone's success. What
That's
is it?
awesome.
A high tide raises all ships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're very much a partner. I love that word, partnership, because that's, I'm still very much in sales for my full-time job at Axelrad. Shout out to them. Um, and I use that word a lot because it's not a one-way street, and I never want people to think that. So I like that word a lot. It's a
Yeah,
partnership.
it can't be a one-way street. I'll say legally it's not a partnership, but besides
Sure.
that, I mean, it working wise, it is definitely, a partnership of having to be responsive to each other as far as, messages I send about, hey, somebody put you on this great Spotify playlist. Let's make sure we thank them, and so that way they're more apt to put you on a playlist the next time around. So it's just, constant little things like that.
Well, if you need a merch partner, let me know.
We have ordered from Axelrad. We love them. We have deep
Very good.
connections to Axelrad. So
I have to give one more shout out while we're doing this because he just came in today. Mutant Brewing Company.
hmm,
Uh, it's a new endeavor for Steve Masterson. You may have come across him in your
yeah,
travels.
the name is familiar.
He used to own Stage West in
Hmm.
Scranton. He owns Stage
Yep.
West out in State College. I don't know when the guy sleeps. He's constantly doing something. He opened a pizza shop in State College, but his new endeavor, which should be open when this airs, is Mutant Brewing. It's I think it's Washington Street in Scranton. Sick merch he just picked up today. Thank you, Steve, for coming to us. But yeah, check that out.
Well,
Sorry to
yeah,
take that.
that's the great thing about Northeast PA. A lot of, that there's a hardworking upbringing, I think, that a lot of people have to it, and everyone has kind of an entrepreneurial spirit, whether it's the little pizza shop on the corner or the bar where the owner lives above it. There's
Yeah,
all that going on there. So I always appreciated that about the area.
yeah, it's a cool place. Uh, it's got its pros and cons like anywhere else,
Yep.
but well, that's awesome. I mean, that's a record label. It's cool that you just kind of like did it. It's I respect that with people who just kind of go for it.
Thank you.
Um, a couple more things. We'll wrap things up. It's what time is it for you? Like 8:20,
9:20.
9:20. You're an hour behind. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you all night.
That's all right.
AI and music. I feel like
Mhm.
that's going to become a thing, and it's probably obviously on your radar, and it's something you need to be cognizant of. What is that? And what have you seen so far?
So obviously, AI is a huge thing coming around, and there's been people who have trained whatever the AI machines are to use other people's voices and then to make music out of it. Um, Lots of issues with that as far as, we're all concerned in the music industry. One of the things is a name likeness and image suit. If you steal someone's voice, you're stealing their image or their name or their likeness, so you can actually sue on that matter. Another thing is, thankfully, the Copyright Office so far has put out a law that you cannot copyright AI music. You can only copyright what is made by a human being. So if you make a complete AI song and try to copyright it, it will be rejected. So I mean, obviously AI is good in a sense where you can maybe get some ideas or some inspiration from, and then go record. It might write a riff for you, and change it up a little bit and give you a great idea, and then go record it yourself. But as far as just putting something in a computer, that has no value as far as I'm concerned, because there's no emotion or there's no spirit behind it. So thankfully, I think everybody in the industry is on board with understanding, what it is, what they tried to do with it, and basically shutting it down as fast as we possibly could. So I'm happy about that. But a lot of people tried to sneak it on there and get tons of streams on it just because they can kind of get paid for free, if you will, by doing that. And Spotify went through and tried to find every AI thing there was and delete it off of there. So, like I said, it's a problem, but I think for once the music industry is being proactive instead of reactive about things and kind of getting on it quickly and shutting it down. So I'm happy about that.
I don't think we're ready for AI in any sector.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
I mean, there's movies about that shit that don't go well.
I'm telling you, they're trying to warn us.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
I mean, even weird things like I said, we go back to our generation when the math teachers would tell us, "You're not going to have a calculator on you every day when you're at the grocery store." Oh,
Dude,
yeah, well,
dude, you fucking stole it. I almost posted the other day on Facebook. I was like, I wonder if all these like AI down players are the same kinds of people that told us that we wouldn't have a calculator in our pocket
yep.
growing up.
Hmm.
Because I feel like people are like, it's not that big a deal. Like, whatever. I don't know. That's so funny. You mentioned that. That's so funny.
Yep.
I almost posted it. You stole it from me. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll
It's like
see.
one of those things. It's like, everyone thought the email was going to be, here and gone,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
They
There's
also
there's
thought
a
those would take
line.
out the post office too, and that's still kicking
Yeah,
us. Who
that's still
knows?
going on. Was it? There's a line in The Office in one of the episodes that Dwight says, "Just wait till this computer fad's over with." And I always crack up at that.
Yeah, right? Who knows? Who knows? Um, I mean, real quick too, I mentioned earlier Oliver Anthony.
Hmm.
And I bring him up just because like I don't think I've ever seen personally someone who was literally nobody,
Hmm.
maybe 3,000 followers on Spotify, and post a song, and 2 weeks later over 1 million. Like, have you seen anything like this before?
Trying to think. I don't think we've had it in this kind of generation where you could do that before. I think songs like that I regard it as kind of like a Bob Dylan tune.
Hmm.
It's one of those kind of generational anthem things that are kind of coming out now. But yeah, I don't think I've seen anything in the streaming world that we have right now kind of blow up like that in the sense of, it strikes a chord with people. I mean, the
Hmm.
one thing I will say about it after hearing it is that the quality of the song is there. As far as, if you
It's a
just
good
think
song.
from a musical standpoint, his guitar is in tune and he sings in tune.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if his guitar was all out of tune and he couldn't sing, it wouldn't have done what it did.
Right.
So that's a lesson right there. Like I said about the songs having to be good.
Yep.
You have to be able to play your instrument. You have to be able to tune your instrument. You have to be able to sing in tune. Those kind of things. I think that definitely is something that helped. Plus his uniqueness, plus the political climate. It was just kind of one of those, just the perfect storm of things coming together.
That sucks too. I mean, each side is trying to make uh a case against the other.
Hmm.
It's so sad. I hate that so much.
Yep, absolutely.
But and it's funny too with the media and the internet. Like, there's I saw a post about him. Oh, he's gonna play the Super Bowl, which isn't true. And I saw a post him said or it's said that he turned down an $8 million record contract.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, but what I wanted to ask you is because I know how I feel, and maybe I'm just wrong. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. Is he foolish to turn down at this moment in his life an $8 million record deal?
I think there was a Billboard article that just came out, and I kind of can see this now as being a 15 minutes of fame type of thing. Um, we see that a ton. I mean, every TikTok viral star, and this is statistical. There's Billboard articles about it too. They blow up, they get signed to a label, they have whatever a number one, a number three hit, and they cannot reproduce it ever again.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot even get on the charts half the time again. So, you're taking this moment, the snapshot, if you will, and it's blowing up and becoming huge. But how quickly whether it be the media or, entertainment or anything, the news cycles pass us by, So will this stay around? Probably for a while. Um, does he have other songs that are great? I haven't really listened enough to know. Obviously, he's got fans now, so they're going to listen to the other songs and think, "Oh, this is great too," and everything like that. I don't have an opinion on it. I haven't listened to it, so yeah. I mean, it could definitely be like one of those viral type hits that in a couple of years we might forget about. So I don't know. As far as turning down an offer from a label, it just depends on kind of what he wants to do. I think right now he has a lot of clout into what he can do. But like I said, 2 3 years from now, we're gonna see kind of how this shakes out, and if he's still
Yeah.
around, or if he's still a star, or if he's not. I mean, he has the potential right now to I think if he kind of takes the right directions and the right steps and has the right team behind him, be able to do a lot. Or if not, he may just fizzle out like so many stars have before.
Yeah. Now I don't know. Again, I don't know how true this is. So this podcast will probably drop next week, the week of like September 5th or whatever. So I mean, things could change between now and then
Yep.
regarding this. So I don't know how true that statement was. I just, if it was the case, and I don't know the language. Let's say he was offered $8 million. What was the language in that? Does he have to put out, however many singles or songs or albums, whatever it might be? But what I read too is, he quote unquote said, or he may have said that he didn't want to sell out, or he wanted to stay true to who he was.
Hmm.
But I mean, if you're that kind of guy, like take the money and help your community, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
he was just on Joe Rogan today. I mean,
Yep.
he's not going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, he's
Yeah. Mm-mm.
just on the biggest podcast platform in the world. So
Exactly. I know he does have management,
yeah.
so I'm sure they're pushing and doing what they can now to make the most out of the situation.
Have you called him? Have you called him to try and get on
I,
Affiant
I
Records?
no, I have
No.
not called him. If not
Would
quite
you
hard
try?
rock enough for me.
Would you try?
No, no, I did. That's not kind of. I don't think what I'm going for as far as
Okay,
the brand of my label. You
got it.
know, if he needs an attorney, absolutely.
There you go. He'll need one if he doesn't have
Yeah,
one already. Yeah, the music industry is wild, and I don't think I expected to get this much knowledge thrown at me. So I hope people who listen to this take a lot away from it, because you gave away a lot of information tonight. I appreciate that a lot.
absolutely.
If no one else listens, I mean, I appreciate the information. Um, as a person who loves music, this will be the last question I ask you. What's your favorite album?
I have two, honestly. But the first one I will say is "Dead Winter Dead" by Sabotage, which is now Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Um, that was just a life-changing album. I was over at Jared Scavone's house, who's an excellent guitar player, who I think he's
Hmm.
still in the area. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Um, and he gave me a copy of this, and I went home and I put it on. And just the first solo that I heard off of that, and it turns out to be the guitarist Al Petrelli, who has played with Alice Cooper. He's done things with Dee Snider. Just an overall great guitar player. Totally changed my way of looking at music, of playing guitar, and the album just means so much to me. And it's cool because I just after that he became the guitar guy to me. So I was like, oh, what gears he using? What notes he playing there? Blah blah blah. Fast forward to 2020 with the pandemic and everything, and I was lucky enough to be able to have some guitar lessons with him. And honestly, he's become a friend and a mentor. And I think that's like the coolest thing, that the guy who changed my life musically is now, I have his number in my phone. We text message each other. So
That's
I always
awesome.
think, man, 20-year-old Bill would be freaking out right now. So
That's so
so
awesome.
Dead Winter Dead by Sabotage is definitely my number one album that I can't go without. But then I will say that the one that kind of shaped my musical style, that the label's kind of based on, and a lot of the clients I represent, is Theosin's Translating the Name. I was
Okay.
teaching guitar in San Diego, and this emo kid came in, with the hair all swooped back in the day and everything, and he's like, I want to play this. I'm like, all right. So I took it home and I put it on, and my first thought was, well, this kid's not going to ever be able to play this at his rate. But beyond that, once I heard it, it was just like, wow, I've never heard anything like this. The raw emotion, the energy, just the notes and everything. And so that kind of took me down the rabbit hole into the alternative world and Warped Tour scene, if you will. So yeah, those are my two albums for sure.
Very cool. Well, Bill, it's been really great to reconnect.
Absolutely.
No, we weren't. I mean, obviously, you were a year ahead of me in high school. We had some of the similar friends, but I don't think we
Yep.
ever really talked much, if at all.
Yeah.
I always knew
Yeah.
of you. So it's great to see, what you're doing now with your legal career, and obviously the launch of the label, and obviously, you had a lot going on leading up to that. Again, thank you for your service. Um, but yeah, it's great to see a fellow Lehman Lehmanite, I guess you could say, doing well, happy, healthy, doing what he loves. So,
Yep. Hey, same
congrats
with
to
you,
you.
man. Absolutely. Congrats to you as well on everything.
I don't know about me. I'm just,
Ah,
I'm just a guy, just a
local
guy.
celebrity at the least.
I do have some awards.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have some, and by the time this airs, I could say this now. By the time this airs, it will be announced that I am up for an award at the Steamtown Music Awards again
There
this
you go.
year. So we'll see if I win. I hope.
Nice.
It's always nice to get some.
What category?
As of right now, from what I heard, it is podcaster slash
Okay.
personality,
Nice.
local celebrity, if you will.
Locals. I'm telling you, man. Telling
No,
you.
that's not.
Everybody knows Johnny Popka.
That's such a weird thing to even say. That's one thing that's cool about this area. It's like you can make a name for yourself, which
You can.
and that's what's. I mean, if you find a small town, and you just, like you said, you do right by people, you're honest, you're nice to people, and you just do the right things. It's like, you can kind of, you know make some changes. And speaking of changes, I hate doing this, but I gotta do it. I'm not sure if you heard last year, I teamed up with the Back Mountain Brewing Company,
Yeah.
which is owned by Clay Cadwalder,
Oh, wow. Nice.
and his wife, who also went to Lehman, and we did Pop Goes Porter last year. And I bring this
Nice.
up because we did cans last year. It's back on tap right now at Back Mountain Brewing Company. And the reason I bring it up because last year we donated $2,000 to the Lake Lehman Music Program,
Awesome.
and we're going to donate $1 per pint sold again to the Lake Lehman Music Program. So
That's great.
if you're in the Back Mountain and you want to stop by, grab a pint of Pop Goes Porter. It's a coffee infused porter. The coffee was provided by Bean Nick Coffee Company, which is Matty Labar. I'm not
Okay.
sure if that name sounds familiar to you or not.
Yeah, I know the Labar as well.
Yeah, so that's on tap now. Um, but that was cool of Clay and his wife to do again because, as you know, you were in the program, the band, the arts.
Oh, yeah.
It's always the first thing to get cut as far as funding goes. So,
Yep.
uh, yeah, I wanted to make sure. But yeah, so it's
Absolutely.
enabled me to do things like that, which I love. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the fact that um I can use this platform and the things I've done to help out others, because that's, you know, more important to me than you saying everyone knows Johnny Popko. I hope people know that, because
Exactly.
it's I don't ever want to come off as like that guy, that douche.
Yeah. Yep. Understandable.
So, well, dude, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was great to, one thing I love about this is the fact that I get to talk to people that I've known of,
Mhm.
but talk to them for, it's been an hour and a half now. So sorry for keep you so long on a
That's
weeknight.
all
I
right.
appreciate it. And I hope to see you land more bands and help change, their lives in the positive. And uh,
Absolutely. No, thank you
congrats.
for having me. Like I said, it was great to reconnect after all these years and, just following each other on socials and kind of keeping up with what each other's doing. So,
Yeah,
much success to you in the future and with everything you're doing. And,
cool.
if anybody wants to follow me, like I said, on social media, I'm William J. Metzger. pretty much on Facebook and Insta is my two main things, and then Affiant Records. That's on every social media platform there is.
And your website?
My website is williamjmetzgerlaw.com
Very cool. Well, again, congrats and best of luck
and
with
affiantrecords.com.
and affiantrecords.com. Well, best of luck with everything you do, and hopefully I'll see you in person. I know you've been in town for the awards and the
Yep.
conference weekend. So, are you around
Yeah,
this
still
year?
have a ton of family there. Wife's family's all there. You know, I got my law license in Pennsylvania as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so yeah,
Are you coming
always
in
have
this year
love to
for it or
do.
no?
This year, no,
No.
no,
Okay. Maybe
not
next
this
year.
year. But yeah, I mean, we're hoping to be in for Christmas at least, so
Okay.
to visit some family. So that'll be fun.
Well, if you're around, maybe we should go see a band or two. We'll hit up the V
Yeah,
spot. That's the V spot's like the place for
that's
music
yeah,
these days,
yep,
which Vinny's great and that venue's great. I wish there were more like it, but
yeah,
it is what it is. But
yep.
buddy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, man. Take it
All
easy.
right, see ya.
See ya.